Welcome to Thursday's Solo. I miss just sitting in my little chair here recording a solo. Now let's make sure the proper microphone is being picked up. Yep, it is. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am back home trying to get back into routine. I love being away and doing things and being busy, but then it's stressful when you get home and you're trying to get back into a routine and play catch up. I don't know. So there's pros and cons, every time I go away, I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, I'm not leaving the house ever again. And then my husband's like, you're going to Ottawa in 2 weeks. I'm like, oh yeah. So anywho, do you remember a while ago, I had an episode where I was talking about restraint collapse, but with regard to coming home from school. So when Milo started kindergarten, it was a transition. Like, he was used to his little daycare and preschool. And then when he started kindergarten, every once in a while, he would have like meltdowns after school at some point. And it never, it wasn't necessarily right after school, but it would be, at bath time or at dinner time, just unlike him, So then I started to look into restraint collapse. It hasn't happened in a while, but it's so funny because, well, it's not funny, but interesting. When we were on vacation, it's like a 4.5 hour flight to Vancouver. Our flight was delayed for 4 hours. So we sat in the airport for 4 hours. Not a peep from him. Like, he was so good. He was so good on the plane. We had the best time. When my husband came to meet me in LA for a couple nights, Milo stayed with my in-laws. They said he was amazing. Like, everything was just so good. The flight home, I thought, because this is what happened when we went to Disneyland, we had like a 45-minute period on the flight home from Disneyland where he was just fed up, like in a mood. And I was like, oh my God, please, dear God, like, make it stop, make it stop. It's so hard when you're in such a confined space and with other people all around, and your child is just like in that mood where they give zero fucks, and you're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Like, please don't escalate. And you're just like trying to do whatever you can. Like, here, have a Kit Kat bar. But the other weird thing that happened on that flight is the guy, so like apparently Milo had been like putting his feet on the back of the seat, which like we didn't know. Like, we're not watching him like a hawk. Like, he's 5 years old. He was keeping himself busy on his tablet, and he wasn't kicking the seat, but I think he was like, to adjust himself in the seat because his feet don't touch the ground, he would like push on the back of the seat, which for the most part, you don't really notice it as a person sitting in the seat. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like a kick, But anyways, when Milo was having like his little meltdown, he kicked the seat or something. And the guy that was sitting in the seat, he was like a really big man, which is important to the story because he was like, his back was like coming through the seat. Like, he was pushing into the back of the seat so hard that like you could see like his back coming through, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if this makes sense to you, but so it was obviously noticeable every single time Milo like even touched the seat. So he like turns around and he's like, yeah, he's been doing that because we got mad and we said something like, Milo, like, don't touch the seat in front of you or like kick it or whatever. And he like turns around, like this big guy, and he's like, yeah, he's been doing it the whole flight. And I was like, oh my God. And we only had maybe like an hour and a half left of the flight. So anyways, that was like a whole thing. And my husband and I were like, okay, like, we had no idea. Like, why didn't you turn around and say something? Jesus. Anywho, that was my first experience on a plane where somebody was like a little bit like rude. Not like, people have been rude to me, but about our child. And I was like, I'm going to fucking fight this guy. I wasn't mad at Milo. I was like, watch your tone, sir. Like, if it was happening, after like 5 minutes or something, if you notice it's still happening, like, just politely turn around and let us know. and we will address the situation. Like, I would have changed seats with Milo or something. Anywho, so because that happened on our flight home from Disneyland, I was thinking, on our flight home from Vancouver, is he going to be, have his little moment of irritation? So I was prepared for that, but nope, everything went so well. And our flight was delayed. Again, thank you, Air Canada. But we found out about it early in the morning. So we were able to just stay at my in-laws' house. We went to the park, like we made a day of it instead of having to sit at the airport, which was nice. Like, that's so nice. So nice of Air Canada to let us know ahead of time that our flight's going to be delayed 3 hours. But yeah, flight went great. And then he passed out instantly in the car. We basically got home at 1 a.m. Vancouver time, which was 4 a.m. Toronto time, because Vancouver's 3 hours behind us. So we were exhausted. By the time I got to bed, it was 5 a.m. So that was nuts. But we didn't even leave the airport parking lot and he passed out in the car seat. And my husband just like carried him to bed. He passed out. So the restraint collapse after vacation came that night. And no, was it the first night? No, I think the first night he was so exhausted, or what? It was Sunday night. Oh my God. Like, we have the time change. We have being away. His March break was 2 weeks long, just being out of routine. And that really does. It was so hard for him to go to bed. And I feel bad because I know that he's just having a hard time falling asleep and going to bed, like following the rule of staying in your room when it's bedtime, because he's been on vacation and it's been like time changes and, just totally different than what we're used to. And so I kept bringing up, we didn't have time to make the reward chart over the weekend. So on Sunday night, I was like, tomorrow we're going to make your reward chart, like to try and remind him, like this is like, we're back in routine, like back to the reward chart. And he didn't really care. It was just like a bad evening. And I will say, because I've talked a lot about melatonin with like specialists and things like that on the podcast, Saturday night when we were totally messed up, like went to bed at 4 a.m. and the time change and everything, that first night back at home was a melatonin night to try and get him like reset. Otherwise he would have been up till 1 a.m, 2 a.m. So yeah, that is the perfect example of when we tend to use melatonin. Like if he's totally out of routine, out of schedule, and we want him to have a good sleep and get back into a schedule, that is the perfect time to use melatonin, in my opinion. Am I a doctor of philosophy? Yes. But medical sleep doctor? No. It just works for us when we use it in that way. But so anyways, Sunday night, terrible night, not going to bed, just, it's such a weird feeling as a parent because you feel bad. And part of me wants to be like, oh, you want to come sleep with me? But then I know I'm just setting myself up for, a nightmare situation that's going to happen all the time. It's like the boundary was, this is bedtime. You stay in your room. That's the boundary. That's the rule. And so we have to stick to it. But I did something bad and I don't think I realized it till after the fact. Like we kept bringing up the reward chart and we were just like, tomorrow we're going to make the reward chart and like, you're not going to, like, if you want to get a star for bedtime tonight, like we have to, stay in our room and have a good bedtime. And he totally understands, but he just like didn't care. So then I got like desperate. And at one point I was like, okay, we're not going to be able to watch YouTube Kids. Like he loves his little shows on YouTube Kids and he prefers to watch that sometimes in the mornings, like when he's having his breakfast, because before bed we don't allow it. So if it's like a TV kind of day where after school we're watching TV, which usually I try not to turn the TV on, but he prefers to watch YouTube Kids. I was like, we're not going to be able to watch YouTube Kids this week. And I think that like sparked some emotion in him, because then he started to get upset and he was like crying and talking to himself saying, I don't know, like that I'm mean or something like that. But like I kept my cool. I was just like, we're not going to be able to watch YouTube Kids. And then I thought about it afterwards and I was like, wait a minute, that's not right. I shouldn't have done that. Because isn't there a thing about if that's basically like a punishment, right? Like you're taking something away. Is it a punishment? I think it is. I know, guys, I have a PhD in psychology, but this was not my area, like this kind of stuff. So you're taking something away for bad behavior, but the thing that you're taking away has nothing to do with what the behavior is. Am I right about that? So you want it to be related somehow. But then again, the reward is fine. Let me just Google right now while I have you here. Let's see. Punishment. Oh, what's it called? Guys, I'm coming. Punishment. A penalty as retribution for an offense. Not going to bed is definitely an offense. But there's the different kinds of punishment, right? So there's the like negative. Oh yeah, here we go. Negative reinforcement, negative punishment. Let's see. So I know this really like doesn't even matter. Okay, so positive reinforcement, something is added to increase the likelihood of a behavior. So that's kind of like the reward chart. So you do X, Y, and Z like all week, and then you get rewarded. And that reward is going to increase the likelihood that he does the things listed on the reward chart. Positive punishment, something is added to decrease the likelihood of a behavior. So I can't think of an example, but you don't go to bed. We're going to put a picture of a scary monster in your room. Like, I don't know. I can't think of what you would add. I guess that would be like something is added to decrease the likelihood of a behavior. Or you put like a lock on the door or something. Like something is added. Okay. Negative reinforcement. So that's what I was doing. Something is removed to increase the likelihood of a behavior. So YouTube Kids removed because you didn't go to bed, okay? Or you didn't stay in your room, you were, Negative punishment, something is removed to decrease the likelihood of a behavior. So you don't go to bed, you don't get your favorite breakfast cereal tomorrow. I wouldn't recommend using food, but you know what I mean? Like you don't get to play basketball tomorrow, something like that, right? Something is removed to decrease. No, wait, something is removed to increase, like something is removed to okay. So here we go. It says right on this page, and it has a .edu at the end. So that means it's like an academic something. The most effective way to teach a person or an animal a new behavior is with positive reinforcement. For example, you tell your 5-year-old son if he cleans his room, he'll get a toy. He quickly cleans his room because he wants a new toy. Let's pause for a moment. Why should I reward my child for doing what is expected? But in fact, we are constantly and consistently rewarded in our lives. Our paychecks are rewards, high grades and acceptance into our preferred school. Being praised for doing a good job and passing a driver's test is also a reward. It's a learning tool and it is extremely effective. Well, there you go. Punishment. Many people confuse negative reinforcement with punishment, but they are two very different mechanisms. Punishment always decreases a behavior. In positive punishment, you add an undesirable stimulus to decrease behavior. Okay, so here's an example of positive punishment. Scolding a student to get the student to stop texting in class. So the reprimand decreases the behavior. In negative punishment, you remove a pleasant stimulus. So if a child misbehaves, a parent can take away a favorite toy. Okay, well, yeah. So today's psychologists and parenting experts favor reinforcement over punishment. We know that. So anyways, after the fact, I was like, oh, damn, like that was punishment. Bad Renee. Um, but I stuck to it. And today, or no, yesterday, he was asking to watch YouTube Kids after school. And we were like, no, sorry. And we had to stick to it. Like he was really pressing us on it. And we were like, sorry, remember? So anyways, sometimes we mess up and sometimes we don't do the absolute best thing that we're supposed to do. But you know what? It's fine. I wanted to talk a little bit about the smartphone debate because I posted that reel and TikTok yesterday about, and the reason I posted it just randomly in the moment, looking like an absolute like disheveled rat, was because I was just sitting there and I came across this reel from this therapist. No, someone sent it to me. And it was a reel from this therapist about how she sees so many kids in her practice who are negatively, like severely negatively affected by smartphone use and social media. And so in the moment, I was just like, oh my God, like the smartphone thing just drives me nuts. And I'm trying to, like, how can you, in 10 years from now, how are my husband and I going to be like, you can't have a smartphone or you have all these limitations on your smartphone if he does have one, like how often you can use it and whatnot, if we're constantly on our phones. And so he's grown up basically seeing us on our phones 24/7, having them with us at all fucking times. This is why we have the phone box and I want to use it consistently. I don't want us to have our phones between 5 and 9, so that he's not seeing us on our phones constantly. So trying to set boundaries with our having the phones too. And it's not even us physically using them, like him seeing us doing stuff on them. It's like, I don't even want them to be out, like I just want them to be gone for set periods of time. So one of the questions somebody asked on that TikTok was, do you have recommendations? Because I mentioned, if the negative effects of smartphones for kids and young teenagers, the research is there, but it's not necessarily well known yet. And I think it will be soon. So the research is there. So somebody was like, what are the accounts that share this kind of research? And I will share them with you now. So the Smartphone Effect is an Instagram account, and I actually recorded a podcast episode with her, Dr. Allison Young. She sees also a ton of patients who are negatively impacted by cell phone usage and social media. She sees the mostly like mental health effects on kids. And so we recorded an entire episode together on this exact topic. So that's on the Mom Room podcast, and it's episode 347 if you want to listen to that. There is an account and a podcast called Scrolling to Death. And yeah, the name is a little bit dramatic. And also just keep in mind, some of these accounts, they share information, but they might be doing it in different ways. So some of the accounts are very research based and it's very neutral and they're not trying to scare you. Whereas, some take the approach of trying to instill fear in parents and getting them to act that way and take it seriously in that way. So be mindful of that when you are looking into these accounts and you are consuming the information. Just take it at face value and don't fall into the like, oh my God, panic mode. So keep that in mind. Everyone has their own unique way in how they present the information. Protect Young Eyes is a website where parents can learn all about the parental controls that you can use on smartphones and with technology. Better Screen Time has courses for families on these exact topics. The Mom Therapist is a good account to check out. And then somebody recommended, actually it was Mom Uncharted, who commented on my video saying that Jonathan Haidt, I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly. It's Jonathan, Jonathan. Last name is Haidt, Haidt. He is a social psychologist in New York at New York University, and he has 4 TED Talks. He's been on multiple podcasts. So if you search him in the podcast app, you can find episodes that he's done on big podcasts like the Tim Ferriss podcast, Armchair, Joe Rogan. And he recently wrote a book called The Anxious Generation. And his whole thing is there are 4 reforms that he thinks should be put in place for children in this new digital age that we live in. And so the first is no smartphones before high school, 1,000%. No social media till age 16, totally. And before the age of 16, teaching them about media literacy, about the dangers of social media, how to use it properly, boundaries with regard to technology usage, all those things, the laws that are in place, like sending pictures that are inappropriate, really, really teaching them before the age of 16 so that when they do get social media, they know. They understand the consequences, what could happen, the laws, all of the above. Phone-free schools, 1,000%. How this has not happened already, I don't know. It is literally an epidemic of kids just being on their phones all day because they have them in school. And recess, lunchtime, whatever it is, kids are just on their phone. They sit in a little group and they're staring at their phones, sending like memes and GIFs and, no, like you do not need your phone at school. Put it in the locker. I just went to a comedy show and they freaking locked up my phone in a little baggie. Like, get those bags. You can have it after school if you need to call your mom to come pick you up or whatever. Like, I went through school without a phone and I'm fine. Like, it's going to be okay. And then somebody was saying in the US, parents are totally against not having phones in school because of the school shooting thing. I understand this, but not every phone has to be a smartphone. Your child can have a phone that is not a smartphone so that they can still contact you. Do you know what I'm saying? Some company out there needs to get on board and create like an entire line of phones that are that do not include social media, that can be used to text and call but have no web browser or things like that. Somebody else made the point too, like they need to see bus schedules and maps and things like that. Like, okay, so the phone can have the maps app on it. Like, what do they need, And then maybe down the road you can add things to it. Like, I don't know. There is a way. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, there is a way we go to the moon. We can make safe phones for kids, but just nobody's doing it. And I don't know why. And then his 4th reform was that there needs to be more independence and free play. I totally agree. Yesterday, Milo was playing outside and I'm trying to cook dinner at the same time, but he wants me to play basketball with him in the front yard. And I'm like, okay, so I would go out there and then I would pop in and like check the meatballs and check, the boiling water on the stove. I'm just like kind of going back in and out. And from the kitchen window, I can see him playing outside and I'm watching him like a hawk. Okay. And he's just like throwing the basketball around. But how different is it now versus like we would play outside and go build cabins in the woods and like, be playing in the entire neighborhood, like running over here, over there. Like my parents were like drinking a tea, reading the newspaper inside. And I can barely go in to check the meatballs in the air fryer with my son playing basketball in the front yard because I'm like, I gotta keep an eye on him. Like, what? What is going on? Oh my God. And I don't know, like, is the world just like totally fucked up now? Or is it that we're just hearing more about the fucked up things because of social media and the internet and the news, you know? Or are things just actually terrible now? And we need to worry like that. Anywho, I had a whole second thing to talk about, and I will save it for either the long episode or I will put it out on the Patreon. I don't know. What I wanted to talk about was the Ren Eleanor account on TikTok that everybody's up in arms about, and I have thoughts and I have so many questions, and so I wanted to talk about that. Or I might just put it into the long episode for next week, hopefully, if I have time today to record that one. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my little rant about smartphones. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but like, something has to be done, and let's just start the conversation and get all the information out there and educate people on what is going on. And yeah, that's it. That's all. So thank you again for listening, and please rate, review, subscribe, and join the Patreon if you want to have fun and listen to random stuff and have, you know, solos flying up randomly because I have ADHD. Actually, that's what my doctor's appointment is about today. I filled out the questionnaire for ADHD before I go see her today. And I was filling it out, and my husband was watching me fill it out, and I would go to put like rarely, and he's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I'm like, "What?" Like, I don't. He's like, "No, like, you need to put like most often." I was like, it's really important to fill out these questionnaires with the person that you live with, because like, he knows. And I'm like, no, rarely. He's like, no, yeah, you gotta switch your answer up for that one. So I might give ADHD medication a shot. One thing that I learned about it is that it's not something that has to, you know, get into your system over a few days or a couple weeks. You literally just take it day by day. So you could take it one day and not take it the next, and it only lasts in your system for like 12 minutes. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I might give it a shot and see what happens. My biggest concern about it is that I'm not going to sleep. But if that happens, like, at least it's just for one day. I can test it out and see what happens. So I'm going to ask her a bunch of questions about it today, but I will keep you posted on that journey. So yeah, guys, again, it's patreon.com/themomroompodcast. There's solos, there's vlogs, there's all the things. There's a private chat, there's a group chat, there's, you know, just fun stuff. So thank you again for listening, and I will talk to you later. Bye.